On this episode, Drew Milden is joining me in the virtual rec room to talk about X-Men 97, and we are going to do that right after this.
Saturday morning, it's fun for all. Cartoons and cereal, let's have a ball. Comic books, kaiju, pro wrestling too. The fun is waiting for you. Back of the cereal box.
All right, friends and foes, we are back, and please welcome into the virtual rec room the one, the only, the host of Drew versus the World, Drew Milden. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing good, Johnny. How are you?
I am fantastic. Now, for those of you who are watching, you're going to notice something very different. We are not live right now. Is this live or is it Memorex? Oh, it's Memorex. We are recording this almost a week before you're watching it. And there are reasons for that. Basically, if you're watching this right now, I am in Metropolis, Illinois at the Superman celebration. So that's what's going on. So we won't be able to do your viewer comments, your audience comments this morning, but that's okay. We're going to mix it up and be a little bit spicy this morning, a little bit different format with Drew, because we're going to be talking about X-Men 97. And I know what some of you are thinking. You know what some of the people are thinking, Drew? They're like, wait a minute. X-Men 97 is a new animated series. That's not part of the Saturday mornings of our youth, because that's what this show is about, celebrating the fun of the Saturday mornings of our youth. But 30 years ago, the original X-Men animated series was part of the Saturday mornings of our youth.
100%.
And X-Men 97 is a continuation of that series, not a reboot. It's not, not a reboot. It's not it's a continuation.
Continuation.
And I love that. Now, before we dig into this, Drew, we've got to acknowledge a couple of sponsors. First of all, we've got Dr. Malcolm's Body Bags.
Love these guys.
Have you been checking this out?
Yes, I donated to their GoFundMe. I think it was over in the past, but every time I see this commercial on your show in the morning, I'm like, what a great idea. I'm a werewolf guy myself. I love everything that has to do with werewolves. So this is like right up my alley. Definitely with their special edition. I think
the stretch goal with the Midnight Werewolf. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So for those of you who remember the Mighty Men and Monster Maker from Tomy, that's what this is, but in 3D with action figures. I love it. Love it.
So cool.
And we also have to acknowledge the people who make this show possible, our Cereal Box Super Friends, and you too can have your name in lights by contributing, becoming a member of our Patreon community at patreon.com/cerealboxpodcast. And that banner will be running along the bottom to help remind you as we go along, because you might be like, wow, these guys are really awesome. I want to drop a tip in their digital tip jar. What was that address again? Oh, yeah, it's running right along the bottom of the screen. How convenient. See what I did there?
I saw it, and I would say if anybody is reluctant to become a Patreon member, go back. I was last week or 2 weeks ago, where one of the patrons was able to actually do an episode of their own, which is totally out of the box. Johnny, you know I love out of the box thinking. It's totally out of the box thinking, and the show was great. The commentary was good. The topic was something, right up my alley, right around the Saturday morning cartoons I used to love. So, yeah, if you want to become a patron, that's worth its weight in gold. Have your name in lights.
That's right. That's right. So with that, we're going to just dive right in. X-Men 97. Drew, I've admitted this on the show before, that I was not a fan of the original X-Men animated series. I didn't like the art style, the art direction. I didn't like the animation. And back then in what, 90, 94, 95, 96, they were adopting the Jim Lee X-Men comics and parts of the Chris Claremont, John Byrne comic series. And quite honestly, I had just read those stories because they were still new. The Jim Lee run of the X-Men was still new in 1994. And I just read these stories. So I'm one of these guys that I'm like, I don't necessarily need to see a story that I've already read adopted into animation or live action.
Do you think it was a good? Did you think it was a good adoption at all? Even though it wasn't the same. It might have not been like 100% of to course material, of course. But do you think it was a good adoption, other than all the other things that you kind of didn't like about it?
That's a good question, and the answer is no. It was not a good adaptation of the source material. However, it was a perfect adaptation of the spirit of the source material, which, as I've gotten older, I've softened a lot on this position. Back in the mid 90s, I was in college and I was like adamant that material be loyal, faithful to the source material.
Was this before or after your sword making? Listen to a previous episode, everybody. You have to. You have to listen to the previous episode after this to understand that reference.
You were paying attention. I still have one of those swords somewhere around. Anyway, I'll have to dig that out and show it off on air. But anyway, I don't know. I've softened on this position a lot. And there was a time when I was adamant that separate IPs remain separate and, never like they be siloed and never cross over. And now I'm a big proponent of the pop culture multiverse.
Yes.
My theory is, Drew, that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the center point of the pop culture multiverse. Okay. Everything connects to them and branches off from them.
Okay. All right.
And
you're blowing my mind right. You're blowing my mind right now.
And
is it
when
the ooze? Is it the ooze? Is the ooze the originator of the mutations? Is that what you're thinking?
Maybe, because but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have crossed over and touched so many other IPs.
Yep.
And those IPs have touched so many others, and it just branches out from that center post of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. When you start looking at the connections, it will just, you might go insane, actually.
If I ever see Spider-Man and the Power Rangers on the same screen, I might lose my mind. I don't know if I could take that much awesomeness. So don't do this to me, Johnny. I don't know if I can take it, because I don't know if I can take it. I don't know if I can take it. But that's a great, because when you think about it, I wonder how the person that owns the IP or the company that owns the IP is really like thinking about that, because to your point, a lot of characters don't mix and mingle with other characters. Like, I feel like, to my example, they were in the Power Rangers universe. They were in Spawn. I think they did something with Spawn. They did it with X-Men. I think may have been one with Spider-Man, because they're both in the same city. So it all kind of makes sense. I don't know why there'll be Angel Grove, but that's for people to read the comics.
Here, I'm going to make this connection for you. Are you ready for this?
Oh, come on. There we go.
So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did cross over with Daredevil in the comics. So there is that establishment of the Marvel 616 universe connecting to the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles also in comics have two series, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Power Rangers.
Yeah, so that, yep.
Where the Turtles become Power Rangers.
Didn't know that.
So, yeah, it's pretty awesome, actually. And so, if the Turtles can connect to the Marvel 616 universe, Daredevil, Spider-Man, and connect to the Power Rangers, that means that the Power Rangers can connect to the 616 universe. And here's where it gets better. The Turtles have crossed over with Batman.
Yes, I know that
which
one.
now means that Batman and the entire DC universe can come through the nexus of the Turtles and cross over. And well, they've crossed over with the Marvel universe many times, but now there's like a physical link. It's and then you start
unraveling, and
you start unraveling the whole thing, and it goes all the way down to Looney Tunes and Popeye, Betty Boop. It goes all the way over to Disney and, you know, Peter Pan and Little Mermaid. And I'm telling you, Ninja
Turtles.
Turtles.
You have like a little, like some strings in your room and your house everywhere with pictures of turtles and connected to different universes, like a beautiful mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, all of that to say, I was very opposed to that connectivity when I was a kid, but now I've softened, and I think it's an awesome idea. And same thing with adapting comic source material. And really, I think the first movie that really softened me on this was The Avengers. It's a kind of a recent example, but you know, The Avengers was not true to the source material. But it was true to the spirit of the source material. And so I could appreciate it. And I could say, okay, this is its own thing. The comics are its own thing. And I could accept that. And so when it comes to the X-Men animated series and the rest of the Marvel Universe animated series, it's going to be very much the same with Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, Iron Man, the Avengers. So, and we're going to be talking about those series and the animated MCU a couple of weeks from now. As a matter of fact, next week, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man, the 1990s Spider-Man series. You want to join us for that?
I might be free. Is this the animated series, the Spider-Man 97?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I will be 100%. So this is the reason why, and I'll just backdrop about X-Men. This is the reason why I like X-Men. So it was in a time where I was very much fresh into the comic book world. I really didn't have too much connection with comics. I really more or less was reading a lot of comic book novels, like the big kind of like
the graphic novels. Sure.
Yes. So what really put me on was Spider-Man 97, whatever we want to call it. The first episode I saw was the episode of him and Hydro Man going at it when they found out that Mary Jane actually has hydro powers. I was like, oh, okay, I'm all in. So I started watching to what you're saying, X-Men, the original, Iron Man, which has the best intro song of all time. I don't care what nobody says.
I can't think of how it goes.
I am Iron Man. Oh, that's okay. That's all I'm giving you for free.
But it wasn't the AC/DC Iron Man, but it was a riff on it.
No, it was riff on it, and it was just him. And he was he had the hammer. He was in the middle. Yeah. And you just hear like it was. Oh man, best.
I am Iron Man.
Yes, exactly. And it was one of the best intros of all time. And Fantastic Four, like you're saying, Silver Surfer. So X-Men 97 was one of the first time I saw, to your point, crossover from a different organization into another universe. That and we could talk about this all day. Animaniacs, that kind of universe. That's another thing that's kind of like it was a multiverse outside of a multiverse. But X-Men did it so fairly simple where they had, again, Spider-Man came in, he needed help with his spider issue that he was turned to a man spider. So he came to X-Men, and they had different. It's funny when you see it and you watch it because they have different uniforms than they did in the actual show, because it was supposed to be an adaptation of the comic book series, so they were completely different.
Well, what wasn't that? That was an episode of or an
Spider-Man.
arc of Spider-Man where
Yes.
he went
Mhm.
and brought these other heroes together.
Yeah, to help
Now-
him out. No.
now-
That was before that. That was the time when he was trying to save that Earth. Before that, when he was turned into Man Spider, he went to Hank McCoy to try to get the serum, to try to get some way to help him, and that's when he was turned into Man Spider, and he talked to Wolverine for a little bit, and Wolverine hunted him down. And
But that wasn't him crossing over universes. It was in universe, but a different, the different team, the different characters.
correct. Yes, you're right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because
So-
a lot of people consider the episode or the story arc of Spider-Man where he assembles
Yes.
Captain America, Iron Man, Storm, and
Mhm.
members of the Fantastic Four
All the
as
members of
the
Fantastic Four. Mhm.
starting point of the
Yep.
MCU.
Yep.
And I maintain it goes back further to the 80s, but
whoever has like a pulse nowadays knows that it's the original material is way before that.
Yeah.
But to a layman's of myself beforehand, when I was just getting started, that was like, what? Like Storm's gonna be here? It's gonna be, the Human Torch is one of my favorite characters too. Like he's gonna be like, it all brought up, and Doctor Doom, one of the greatest villains of all time. So that was kind of like my introduction. But spoiler alert for X-Men 97, I loved it. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, so just a couple of frames. This is from the original series in the mid 90s. And I know a lot of people say that the animation and art style on 97 isn't nearly as good, but holy cow, you go from that to this. I mean, the
drip.
The improvement on the animation, the art style, the writing, the voice acting, everything was fantastic. And by the way, we were talking about the adaptation of source material, right?
Mhm.
So this is the cover of X-Men. What number is that? 299? 200? I can't even. Yeah, 200.
Yes, 200.
And this is when Chris Claremont was still writing. John Romita Jr. was the artist. This is before the Jim Lee run, where Professor Xavier was assumed dead, and Magneto took over. And this is the trial of Magneto, which is part of what we're seeing in X-Men 97 here.
So I had a question. Why does Magneto need those long gloves? I don't understand that at all. The long gloves,
because it was
reason for it.
It was the late 80s, Drew. It was the glam rock era.
I was like, why? The Master Magnetism needs long gloves for what reason? Like, I understand Rogue.
Well, but he wears a full body armor with gloves, and I mean,
I'd rather have the full drip than just like he just have his little like elbows out. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just me. It was just very like off-putting. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to be a superhero here and going with late 80s superhero style.
Big M. The Big M was cool. I liked him. He was Magneto in this series. I always thought of Magneto as like the best, like as far as his rationale. But this series really like hit it home. Just I don't think a lot of people they kind of like play onto it, but they really, what he keeps on saying is like, hey, I've been through a huge genocide already. And plus, now I'm trying to go through another one. Now I'm about to go to another one. I need you guys to understand where I'm coming from. Like, it's not like it's not like he's just angry to be angry. He's seen the worst of people. And I think they touch upon it a little bit, but they don't say it. And I don't want to say it unless you want me to say it, but I can.
No, you can. I mean, the mutant problem, quote unquote, in the Marvel universe is analogous to two parts of real history. The civil rights struggle here in America, you know, Xavier and Magneto represent Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. But even deeper than that is Eric Lenscher, Magneto. It was a Jew, a boy in World War II, and he was interned in a concentration camp and watched his family get murdered by the Nazis. And so he doesn't want that to ever repeat in history. And neither does Professor Xavier, but their belief in how to accomplish peace and safety for the mutant race is completely different, kind of like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You know, Xavier, you know, peaceful coexistence, you know, that whole Martin Luther King philosophy, do not judge us by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Don't judge mutants by, you know, the condition of their birth, but by what they show you through their character. And Magneto is the other way around. He's like, no, they'll never see that. They'll never accept us. And the only way to achieve peace is through dominance. And for mutant kind to become the dominant race. And that's, and I'll tell you what this show did. This particular X-Men 97 actually made Magneto very relatable and very likable.
Oh yes. Had him strung out in his underwear for no reason. I don't understand that part either. You know, so I was like,
well, what
type of show is this? That's for children.
That's straight from the comics as well, but it wasn't Magneto that was on that X cross. It was Wolverine.
Yes. I did see a video about that.
And it was on one of the covers. As a matter of fact, in Logan, which I've got the poster right here, one of the X-Men comic books that was on the bed when he flips through them and kind of laughs was that issue with him strung out on the X crucifix.
That's crazy.
Okay.
The one thing I want to touch on with Magneto is interesting. The comparison between Magneto and Professor X is that when you think about it, it's like Professor X really didn't have, and I don't know, he didn't have too much struggle, right? He can walk around just kind of being telepathic without people knowing. He just did like cool things. But when you think about it, Magneto had seen the horrors of people already, so he always had that kind of like deep-rooted understanding of how horrible people can be. I was always interested in seeing, and this series really showed, even when they showed his tattoo, the concentration camp number, they kept it true to source. Like they've been doing that since, was it Future Past? No, even before that, the original X-Men, they showed him when he did the thing with the
gates.
Quarter. Yeah. So no, he did a quarter to in Future Past, I think, to what's his name. But yeah, that's interesting.
What I would like is for them to explain why Magneto, who was interned in a Nazi concentration camp, is not 100 years old.
Magnetism, baby.
Well, maybe his magnetic abilities.
That's what I thought.
You know, prevent him from aging.
Yeah, because even with the story arc, and we're getting into the episode series now. Even the story arc with Rogue, when they don't say it specifically, but when they sleep together, he has to be like 65,
and not for the first time.
Exactly. I'm like, he's older. Like he's an older gentleman. No, she talks about the first time they slept together. He was older there. He had white hair there. So now he has to be like 30, 20 years older.
You watched the original series.
Yes, I
did. When Rogue and Magneto had a relationship, it was when they were stranded in the Savage Land together.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was that true did that happen in the original animated series? Did that storyline happen?
No, it didn't. They didn't talk about that in the original series. They actually didn't hint at this at all.
Okay.
That's why it was such like the whole like
Out of left field for
trouble that they were trying to create here with Gambit, one of my favorite characters again, Magneto and Rogue. That's where it was so like I was like, what is happening here?
yeah, that's directly out of the comics, and then later on, Rogue and Magneto become a couple again, and she has this on again, off again relationship with Gambit until they get married, and I think they're off again. I don't know what I just know that she was recently, once again, a member of the Avengers. In Uncanny Avengers, and Gambit was nowhere to be seen. So I don't know what their status is because I've not been reading the X-Men comics for ages. And there's a reason for that. The X-Men is the easiest comic series not to mess up.
Yeah.
And yet, creators since Jim Lee just can't help but try to improve it. And you know how that always goes. Same thing with Teen Titans over on DC.
Man, come on.
Teen Titans is the easiest series not to mess up. And yet they just keep tinkering with it and it never makes it better. But let's talk about, since we're talking about better, I really believe that X-Men 97 is far superior to the original series.
100%.
So let's talk about the top 10 moments from X-Men 97. And at number 10 is Cyclops showing off and being the badass that we never saw him be. To me, my X-Men, that scene where he jumps out of the Blackbird as it's exploding and uses his optic blasts to slow his descent so he can make a landing was just too cool for the room.
So 2 things that is showed there. First thing, they changed shout out to Black Nerd Problems on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. They explained this very well. But they finally showed that Scott's power is concussive blast, not laser beams.
Right.
So everybody always believes it's laser beams. So just like laser. But with concussive blast, he can do things like that because it's actually pushing on things. It's not really going through things. Like he can concentrate it so it can go through things.
Right.
But it's more for but the best thing
that's what the visor is for.
Exactly. So people didn't think about that. So when they changed that and they edited and he did that it was such a we'll talk about that scene later. But even the Blackbird, he looked at everybody. He made sure everybody was good. He made sure everybody that flew, called everybody who didn't fly, and then he did a concussive blast. It was so, oh man, I have a new found relationship with Cyclops from that moment on.
Well, and then when he's in the warehouse, or the dance club, I forget where it was, helping Roberto, he's using his
that's
the
warehouse
to move to move across the room. And that was just something that we've never seen, even in the comics. We've never seen him use his powers like that, and it was very cool. Very cool.
Another thing, just another shout out to Marvel vs. Capcom or Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yep.
He does the X before he blasts, just like in Marvel vs. Capcom. That was a distinct put in there from the creator.
By the way, I played that game yesterday.
Oh, nice.
At, the cabinet.
Arcade?
Arcade cabinet at a place called Game Terminal here in Nashville. It's a free play arcade, like 5,000 games. It's amazing. Anyway. Yeah, I didn't notice that, but yeah that is cool. That is a cool little Easter egg. So coming in at number 9, the triple assault on the Master Mold. So we have the trio of Wolverine, Gambit, and Morph. And this is where we see, Morph like changes into the Hulk and the Blob. And this is where Gambit charges Wolverine's claws, and Morph either as the Blob or I think it was
I think it was the
when he was the
Blob.
Blob. Yeah,
Yep.
he
He
Wolverine
bounces.
bounces off of the
Mhm.
Blob and basically does a fastball special
Yep.
with his charged claws
Yep.
that blew my mind.
This is the first time they didn't do it a lot in '90s in the original, where they actually show the teamwork aspect
Yeah,
of like you spend this time with this team a lot in the show, but you don't see how cohesive they have to be to actually destroy these monsters. It's usually like Wolverine going on a rampage or Rogue. It's usually like one-on-ones. But in this series, they really touched on that. I think this is one of a couple of obvious like combinations. But I think you're going to get to one that I want to talk about after this one. But go ahead.
well, so
What
the
would you?
next number 8 is Storm Takes Flight. Storm lost her powers from the executioner's
Mhm.
collar. The what was it?
It's a collar blaster.
Yeah, and she seemingly lost her powers permanently,
Mhm.
and she goes on a spiritual journey, finds
Mhm.
an old friend. Forge rescues her and helps her get her powers back. And throughout the whole thing, she has to confront some kind of Native American
Yeah.
demon, this
Yes.
owl demon that's
Mhm.
been haunting Forge, and she battles Sauron,
Mhm.
and uh, she gets her powers back,
Yep.
and it's this Man of Steel moment, like like flying into the sun, and the rays bathe her, and she's
Mhm.
fully herself again.
Storm in this series got her due freaking respect. I'm gonna say freaking. I'm not gonna say the word I wanted to say, but she got her respect. The first thing Magneto said, and when he saw her, was like, you are as close to a goddess as we all can be." I was like, "Yes, thank you. Give her her respect," and she deserved every minute of that. I was happy that she lost her powers to find herself, and then she came back double the strength. I think next season I'm going to love to see how she interacts with the new world.
So, one thing that I did find interesting was that she she started that journey with a mohawk,
Yes.
which I personally love
Yes, that's the
Mohawk
best one.
Storm.
Mhm.
And as she regains her powers, her hair transforms,
Yes.
and it's the full hair. And that line, "You are the closest thing to a goddess that there is actually from her origin story. When we first meet um,
Yes.
Storm in Giant Size X-Men #1
Mhm.
by Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum, um, she is being worshipped as a
Yes.
goddess in
Mhm.
Africa.
Mhm.
And I, what I never really understood this part of the story. Xavier appears to her, connects with her mind and says, "I need you to come join me." And she's like, "Okay, I'm going to give up the goddess worship and all of this lavishness and just come and save the world."
She's obviously one of the few omega level mutants, right? So my thought process always has been like that she kind of wanted to do something grander than herself. So
Okay.
she rather not be praised, and she like, you know what? I understand that this part, this has I have established myself in this part of the world. I'm gonna go and save the other people that of my kind that are there. Um, which in the original series, there's a whole storyline about that, by the way.
Oh,
And
really?
they
Okay.
have they have I believe she has a son or a cousin or something like that. That's like almost as fast as Quicksilver. But and they go through the whole Sauron everything. Like it's a whole background on how she got the crippling um her crippling anxiety,
Claustrophobia.
claustrophobia, and everything like that. And they go that's on in original, but this series, well, to what we were saying, that's why I feel like she left. But to your point, it's kind of like I'm good here. Why? Like why? You're literally a goddess there. She and then
Well,
in a
and
later thing she gets with T'Challa and she gets her just due.
yeah, so And even in that very first appearance, Giant Size X-Men #1, she wasn't even being recruited to go save the world. Xavier was recruiting new X-Men to go save the X-Men who had disappeared on the island of Krakoa, which would come back again recently, and that's a whole nother thing. And yes, she ends up marrying T'Challa, the Black Panther. And what did you think of that at the time?
I think it's a power couple thing.
Now they have since broken up.
Oh yeah.
In A versus X, Avengers versus X-Men. However, you're going to be thrilled to know that with Avengers number 17, Storm is rejoining the Avengers. And Black Panther is one of the field leaders of the team. So they are going to be reunited, and we'll see if there's a new romance that's, buds again, or if sparks fly.
Ooh, okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Here we go.
Yes.
I gotta get that episode. That's that
yeah,
issue.
But she's going to be a member of the mainstream Avengers team. She was briefly for 3 issues back during Brian Michael Bendis's run, but and there was a series called Marvel Adventures.
Ooh.
Marvel Adventures Avengers. It was a long running all ages series, and the Avengers team included Storm in that. It was Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Wolverine, the Wasp, Storm, and did I say Spider-Man?
You didn't say Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. That was the team in Marvel Adventures Avengers. So anyway, she'll be back.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. So number 7, Jean versus Madeline. Madeline Pryor. So this was a departure from the source material, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
In the original comics, Madeline Pryor, yes, was a clone of Jean Grey, but Jean Grey was long gone. She had died as the Phoenix, and she was not coming back. It had been maybe 10 years since she had appeared in the comics. So Chris Claremont, and the artist at the time was what was his name? Smith. Not David Smith, Phil Smith. Anyway, they introduced Madeline Pryor in a tag at the end of, one of the issues, and everyone lost their mind because they're like, wait a minute, how is Jean alive? And it turns out she's, we learn, that storyline took years to develop in the comics, like 2 years. And eventually she was revealed as a clone. She became the Goblin Queen, and ushered in the Inferno storyline, where Limbo, Belasco, and Sim, and Magic, Ileana, were all involved in bringing basically hell to Earth.
Really?
Yeah, it was a big deal. And she Madeline Pryor died, quote unquote, during that event. She'd become, the Black Queen with the Hellfire Club, and then during Inferno, she was defeated and she died and vanished. And then and only then, did John Byrne bring back Jean Grey, and it was kind of a middle finger to Chris Claremont.
I love a good artist beef.
he did it. He did it in the pages of the Fantastic Four.
Ooh.
Reed discovered a cocoon at the bottom of the ocean, and this cocoon was holding Jean Grey in stasis. Basically, when the Phoenix left her, it enveloped her in a cocoon to keep her alive. And so years later, she returns and made a lot of fans both happy and angry. So they compress and I don't think Madeline was the one who had Nathan.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't think that at all.
It was Jean.
Yeah, it was Jean
in the comics.
Yeah.
But all of that storytelling over a 10-year period, I guess, was all condensed
into
into
like an episode.
well,
Maybe-
a couple of episodes, right?
Yeah.
And we learned that Madeline is the clone of Jean Grey. She has her memories. They're sharing memories because Mr. Sinister has, pitted them against each other and used Jean as the template for Madeline and vice versa. And Madeline becomes the Goblin Queen. And she utters those words. Now you will feel
Yep.
my inferno. And that was a direct reference to the storyline from the comics.
It all makes sense now. I need you to give me a little bit 401 on Mr. Sinister, but I don't want to just like, what's up with that guy?
You know what?
His whole thing is like, I just want to see Scott Summers and Jean Grey have a baby. That's weird.
So that whole storyline with Mr. Sinister, I'm not sure where it comes from because I had stopped reading X-Men comics by the time Sinister was introduced. And
Okay.
he was created by Rob Liefeld, who also co-created Deadpool and co-created Cable. And Rob
That makes
Liefeld
sense.
is the worst artist on the planet.
Jeez,
And-
Louise. Shots fired at Robert.
Well, I ain't wrong. And his writing was, because he plagiarized a lot of stuff.
Oh.
And he'll admit that he gypped a lot of stuff from other sources. But so all of that storytelling with Jean and Madeline and Scott and Sinister is all compressed.
Yep.
But we got this fantastic battle. And really, truthfully, if you want to really distill it, Madeline Pryor's journey is the same journey as Anakin Skywalker.
I saw something like that.
The hero falls to the dark side, becomes, the terror, and then is saved and redeemed.
Yep.
And that all happens in this one episode.
Yes. And it's this would have been a great Halloween episode if they could have done it like during Halloween. This has been a great. It was very, very the animation was amazing. The fight scenes obviously was great when Beast Wolverine threw. So I forgot who threw Wolverine. Morph changed into, I think it was Colossus.
Yeah.
And then threw Wolverine into Beast so he didn't fall into the fire. That the Hellfire, the charging of I forgot his name. With he can absorb energy, then redirect it. Bishop. The charging of Bishop. It was amazing. I really, really, really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. I mean, great stuff. And I remember that was like episode 3. I think.
Yeah.
and I'm like, this show is balls to the wall.
It's like, and that's another thing I loved about it. It's like something's always happening. There's no like, oh, I could take this episode off. No, there was one episode you could take off, but other than that, it was the episode with Jubilee, and she went into the game.
Yeah,
like I could take that episode off. But other than that,
the arcade or the Mojoverse thing,
everything
that was kind of random.
They tried to just get Mojo back in there. I'm like, I guess you have to have. Well, they played into that. Well, it doesn't make any sense anymore though, because they went. Because I was like, okay, they just need to open up space, right? So I was like, maybe just doing this to open up space. It was like 2 episodes after that, we see Charles Xavier in space. But go ahead. I don't want to go to the list.
That's okay. So number 6 on the top 10 list is Magneto's monologue in front of the United Nations. And really, it was a Martin Luther King moment.
Well, what was this the monologue that he said before the executioner or after the executioner?
It's before. He is addressing the UN for war crimes, and the executioner crashes.
Yeah.
The whole session, but Magneto up to that point, you know, at its core, you know, was it was inspiring, it was truthful, it was, you know, here's the thing. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but I certainly did. The organization Friends of Humanity mirrors in the real world the toxic fandom in pop culture right now.
Here we go. There was a Capitol, Friends of Humanity. They went into the Capitol. Need I say any more? I'll just let people put two to two together. It was very like even more than, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, no, but you know, there is a whole group of fandom, and it's an ugly side of fandom. You know, the guys like Nerdrotic and the Quartering, they actually related and said this publicly to the Friends of Humanity, and they understood the Friends of Humanity. I'm like, what?
So here's my thing, Johnny. My life is about seeing both sides. That's why you guys listen to Drew vs. the World podcast. You'll see information through information, see both sides of things.
Sure.
So I like to think about, so the Executioner says something that is very like poppable to me, right? All they're trying to do, at least from like a systematic perspective, is they're trying to stop their extinction because they believe that the mutants are the next level, and upon them becoming the next level of humanity, they will be snuffed out. So I can, from a very like low level, understand like, hey, I might not be alive tomorrow because of your existence. Now, is that the right thing? Should you kind of commune with that new evolution, or should you kind of embrace it and, you know, understand that this is how life needs to be? We all need to work together to form some type of. But so, from a very low understanding, I kind of understand why it's not right, but I understand why.
I know, and I get what you're saying, and in the real world, there is. And we don't do politics on this show, but we're going to get socially aware for just a moment, because it plays into this episode. That's what this whole thing is about. It's an allegory for today's social awareness. There is a certain percentage of the white American male population that is terrified that they are going to be replaced.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. They are going to be replaced. The U.S. Census shows that by the year 2050, maybe sooner, but no later than 2050, that white men will be the minority race in America. And to me, that's not a bad thing. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Because we're seeing more interracial marriages, more intercultural marriages. It's a
melting pot. Yes.
It's a melting, and eventually we will get to where I wish we were now, and the way that, in my opinion, God intended it: one people, one blood, one race, no more separation. And I don't find that threatening at all. I find that super inspiring and hopeful. And, you know, I mean, look, you've seen the children of race mixed couples. They're the most beautiful people on the planet.
Love them.
I mean, look at what's his name? The music artist.
Lenny Kravitz.
Oh my God. That man is like Apollo. Anyway, so that's what this whole episode is about. What the Friends of Humanity is about. It's an allegory for, you know, white middle-aged men who are terrified at racial diversity and cultural diversity.
Yes.
And, you know, you've heard me say it before, I think, that I see the world and I see people like that box of Crayola crayons. And when people ask me all the time, Johnny, when did you get so woke? Sixth grade. I got the box of 64 Crayola crayons with the sharpener in the back.
Ooh, come on now.
And listen, that expanded my creativity beyond what I had ever imagined with the basic 8 before. And there are people who they don't even want the basic 8.
Mm-hmm.
They just want one color.
Yes.
They just want a box of 8 white crayons.
Exactly.
And that's not the real world. That's not the world we live in. And that's not a reflection of the Morgan Freeman said it best in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh man, taking me back.
Yeah. The little girl, they're getting ready to go fight the big battle the next day. And he's leaning by the hut. There's a fire burning, and this little girl comes up to him and she says, "Did God paint you?" And
yes.
And he says, "Did God paint me?" For sure. And she says, "Why did God paint you?" And he says, "Because Allah loves wondrous variety."
Mm.
And that is like one of my life mottos. God loves wondrous variety.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that to say, that's what Magneto's speech was all about.
And the last bit when he said, like, usually I would rip you guys apart, but I'm thinking my man Charles, I'm gonna let y'all live. And yeah. So it was a great scene. And that was also the scene where Storm lost her powers. So that was even bigger, that she the goddess lost her powers at the same time.
Well, and so that leads right into the number 4 best moment. Magneto declares war. Or actually, wait, I skipped one. Number 5 is Rogue's rampage.
Oh yeah.
That episode when she's flying into the secret base to find Henry Girick.
Mm-hmm.
You saw why Rogue is considered one of the top tier, not just X-Men, but heroes of the Marvel Universe.
Mm-hmm.
She was awesome in that.
She got everybody together. It was it was good to see her full powers, and it was basically like seeing somebody stressed out, taking their anger out on people, and it was powerful. I really liked the episode. It was good to see Rogue go full out. Well,
and my favorite moment was the cameo, the appearance by Captain America.
Oh yeah.
Because this is a deep cut. This is a huge nod to the comic storyline.
Mm-hmm.
In the comics, Steve Rogers, after the events of Avengers versus X-Men and the whole battle over who's going to control the Phoenix Force, he recognizes that the world needs to see a unity between humanity and mutants. Mm. And so he forms a team of Avengers called the Unity Squad.
Yep.
And his first recruit, his first choice to join it was Rogue. And she not only became a pivotal member of that team, she stayed with that team through the entire run and eventually became the leader of a team of Avengers. And when the Uncanny Avengers were reformed recently, Rogue was the first one to answer Captain America's call. And her relationship with Steve Rogers is they become so close in the comics. He's the only one that I know that can call her by her real name, Anna Marie.
Yeah.
And she loves him, and not in a romantic way.
It's like having a best friend, like a BFF.
And they worked so well together. And to see that translated into this episode, my inner fanboy just went berserk.
Best part is when she took that shield, she chucked it.
and he's just like, I'm going to have to go find that
exactly.
shield. I mean, he wasn't even mad at her though. He was just like, "You just ruined my day, girl."
After all those fights Captain America must have had, he had to have lost that shield so many times. He's just like, okay, let me just put this Apple AirTag in it.
All right, so so we almost skipped over that moment to number 4. Magneto declares war in Tolerance is Extinction Part 1. And again, we see just how powerful Magneto really is. He creates a global EMP.
He goes to the North Pole and creates, like, it was crazy. I didn't even think he had that power.
Yeah, it was amazing. And he starts building Asteroid M, which he brings down from orbit right over the X Mansion. And I mean, dude was just, I don't even know how to explain how well they translated the sheer power that he has. And then the end of that episode, one of the second most shocking moments of the series, when he sucks the adamantium out of Wolverine's body, off of his bones. Again, a moment directly from Jim Lee's run on the X-Men.
It's always funny when I see Wolverine trying to attack Magneto. I'm like, Magneto's probably like, okay, that was the time where Magneto was like, you know what? I had enough of playing around with you. Like, you always do this all the time, and you know I have this power. Why are we playing this game? So he went literally to what he needed to do, and it was funny because people was like, yeah, Wolverine had to stab him because he was like, okay, so when he ripped his adamantium out of his body, he had the same right. He stabbed him. He stabbed him.
So let's talk about there was this throuple with Jean, Madeline, and Scott. But we all know that Wolverine has been madly in love with Jean Grey from day one. Yes. That's comics canon, that's movie canon, that's X-Men 97 canon. And Scott knows it. So what a jerk move of Scott when he's splitting up the teams to send Wolverine on the team to go get Magneto.
I saw something online about that. I was like, dang. He said, it was like, oh, I heard you kiss my wife. I heard you kiss my wife in the pool. I heard about it. So, go and face the guy that has magnetism.
And by the way, I think Jean Grey actually does love Wolverine as well.
Yeah,
I think she's torn between 100%. Logan and Scott.
And originally, it was cleared out too, like that I think they had a relationship, like a legitimate relationship.
Okay. But she has made a commitment to Scott, and so she's honoring to that. But I think she loves them both equally.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, that was
the other weird part was when he was. I don't know if they're going to bring it up, but the other weird part was when he was on the bed, and the last couple episodes, and Scott comes over to him. He's like, don't you die for her. Like he said something like that.
Don't you break her heart.
Don't you break her heart. So I was like, oh, so he definitely, so that even expounds it. Like, he definitely knows that he loves her and she loves him. Like, you better not do this.
Yeah, you better not die. You better make it through this, because if you don't, you're going to break her heart.
Yeah.
Because he was in the hospital bed at that point. He had and I don't know if this is on the list, but we're going to talk about it because Morph.
Oh, man, I was waiting for it.
Morph. There's a lot of debate about Morph's sexuality, and he's a shape changer. He's a metamorph.
He can be nothing but fluid.
He is exactly that. That is the core nature of who he is.
Yes,
because he can be anyone that he wants, and he comes on to Gambit He comes on to Wolverine in the
Mhm.
showers,
Mm-hmm.
and at the bedside, he, he's like, look, she can't be here to tell you
Yes.
how she feels, but I'm here. And he turns into Jean Grey,
Yes.
and I don't think he's just speaking for Jean there.
Nope.
I think Morph is probably speaking for itself there.
So even with Madeline, so the sour scene was Madeline prior creation. But in that shower scene, he was like, Wolverine was there. He's taking a shower. He was like, "We all know, Morph. We all know. Like you keep on joking around, but we all know." I was like, "Mm-hmm."
Well, so if we're going to talk about shower scenes, there's a moment when they're out on the basketball court, they're playing around, and Wolverine says to Storm, Aurora, I'm going to hit the showers. You want to join me?
Yep.
And do you remember what she said in response?
No, I don't remember.
I don't remember the exact words, but it was pretty much like, not this time.
Yes,
like,
it was something like that. It was something like that.
it,
Yeah.
But it intimated that, they've done this before.
So I'm pretty sure, and maybe this is for a late night podcast, but I'm pretty sure everybody in that X-Men has mixed and mingled, like at least a couple of times, like except for the Jubilees of the world, the younger cast members. But I mean, you're living there 24/7, like see the same people all day. You guys are not related, so it's kind of like a thing.
It's kind of like at the college dorm room.
Exactly, just mix it up.
All right, moving right along. Top 10 moment number 3, Gambit's sacrifice. Episode 5, which has, by the way, been nominated for an Emmy.
Yes, it better win. I watched that episode 4 times. I didn't get to watch it today, but I'm gonna watch it when we're finished here. Actually, it was so even because I always love Gambit. They call him a swamp rat. They and he in the original, you get to see him go back home and actually understand like Remy, like where his name came from, why he was part of these thieves, like band of thieves,
the Thieves Guild is
exactly
what it was called.
and he had to go back and basically he was like the king, so he had to like renounce his title or whatever. So going through that and seeing him there where he just came to terms with Magneto and Rogue being an item, and him knowing, and her just being straight up with him and just telling him like, hey, this is where I'm going to be. You can't touch me. He can touch me and all that stuff, which is another like, is this for a kid show? But anyway, but
no, this was not.
And anyway, and then when he got the best line, name is Gambit, remember it. That's like I want to have it on shirts. I want it like it should be a thing. I don't know if it's a thing, but best line I think I've ever heard.
I think wasn't it actually so Rogue has come down, she's scooped him up, and he was already dead at that point.
He already got stabbed, and
he's charging the Tricentennial with his powers, and he says the name's Gambit, remember it, just before it blows up.
He said, yeah, he was like raise your bet and cut the cards, and then he was like, and then he came, and then the whatever the zippy thing came, stabbed him in the heart. He just held on to it. He was like, name's Gambit, remember it, and he just started glowing. I was like, oh, what?
Now, why did he not charge the motorcycle?
He did.
Did he?
I think he charged the motorcycle and he threw it at him. But,
okay.
But it's like a super sentinel, so
yeah,
there was nothing he was doing.
Because he charged its head, and caused the head to
No, he charged the thing that was in him, because what everything he touches, so it was touching him, so he started charging it.
Yeah.
Like while he was talking, while the master, whatever master mold or super sentinel was talking, and it started to glow, and the animation was so good because you don't notice that it's glowing pink until like the very end, until he's about to hit that line. Once he hits that line, you're like, oh, what is he doing? And it just explodes. And then what you call it, Rogue was inconsolable.
Yeah. Yeah. And here was the one thing about that episode that drove me insane.
Mhm.
So episode 5 ends with this huge, just emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
And it ends with Rogue sobbing, holding Gambit, goes black. The very next episode is off in space
Yeah.
with Xavier. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? What
But
we had to
see,
wait
that,
2 episodes for
that
the
is exactly
resolution of
how
that
the
story.
original one was, though. That's exactly how the original one was. It would just be like one storyline, and you're like, oh no, we're in space now. It literally would go like that. So this is why I really like this series, because it was very, very core. And I understand what you're saying. You're like, what happened here? We're not going to see. Yeah, it's exactly how the original X-Men was.
Now, according to fans, the number 2 best moment of the top 10 is the start of that Tolerance's Extinction Part 1, the return of Professor X. Now, this for me is not a top 10 moment.
No, I don't even think it's top 20.
As a matter of fact, I know where the storyline came from. It's from the source material, the comics. That all happened where Charles decided to stay in space with Ileandra and become her consort and yada 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 yada. That was a Jim Lee thing. It was a great story.
Mhm.
But it made 0 sense in this series because he died. They saw his body, right?
They literally
They buried his body.
Yes.
So how in the world is he still alive on the Shire homeworld? They didn't explain that at all. And then he's like,
wait. So they did. So when he was about to die, what happened was that I forgot her name, Leandra. She came and took his body from the hospital to space to try to find a way how to save him. So that's what happened from the original.
Well, and in the comics, it was a clone. They cloned his body because his original body died.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
honestly, this series could have done without Professor X. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, he kind of like, I'm like, Magneto's here, like doing.
I was kind of disappointed when he came back.
I was like, why are you here again? Like we're dealing with real things right now. Like people are trying to kill us, and you're trying to let's hold hand to save the world. We don't need you right now. Right now, we need him. We need him to do his things. It was interesting. That whole mind thing when he took over his mind, I didn't like that either.
Neither did I.
That was a waste of episode.
Well, not the whole episode, but that portion. Yeah,
that portion.
Episode.
Yes.
Yeah, that was so drawn out, and the water, the flooding, and the whole thing. I'm just like, dude, either shut him off or take him over, and then deal with it later. What are you doing? Anyway, yeah, I could have done without Professor Xavier completely.
100%. Like maybe season 2 he came back, maybe. But honestly, I was so enthralled with like every character that was like an ancillary character got to shine in this series. Like everybody, even Jubilee. Like I don't know, I don't think it's number 1, obviously. But when she was fighting Bastion, and you finally get to see Jubilee actually cause damage, that's top 10 material. We could take that and move it there.
Yeah. Well, and I loved Sunspot's story arc.
It's not the same.
He was a member of the New Mutants in the comics. He was never a member of the X-Men in this framework. But, seeing him from just thinking he had abilities because he wasn't even sure what he could do.
Yep.
To, I mean,
Flying.
flight, super strength, energy, projection.
Yep.
And in the comics, he's just super strong. He doesn't fly or project energy. So that was kind of a different take. And I did love that they didn't go the route that they did in the New Mutants movie. Because remember,
Oh my goodness.
he just created heat.
I just
He got
hope
hot. It was
let's never
so
talk
bad.
about that movie ever again. That's
Well, no, we can take out the Anna Taylor-Joy scenes.
you have what, 15 minutes?
Yeah. Of Ileana. She was great.
Yeah.
And her battling the demon bear, that was great.
Yes.
But that's all that was great about that movie. Yeah, I would love to see that character that she played in the MCU.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Out of your mouth to Kevin Feige's.
Yeah, we'll see. Now there's some rumor that he's backtracking on their decision to continue the Colleen Wing Iron Fist story. Because those toxic fans on YouTube have railed against Marvel's going woke, and I'm like, did you not watch the Netflix series? That was the best part of that whole. Anyway, number one moment, top 10
right.
X-Men 97. Let's see if you agree with this.
Probably not.
Stranded in Time. Now, the last moment, they are saving. They're taking Asteroid M back up, and all of a sudden, it just dematerializes. We don't know how or by whom.
That was the thing I was going to touch. That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think happened?
I don't know. We're going to have to wait till season 2 to find out. But this was the cool part. So we saw part of the team thrust back into ancient Egypt, and Sabanur, who becomes Apocalypse. And, they go over that, they save him, and then they go over that ridge, and that domed citadel, that's Kang the Conqueror.
Yes.
I listen, I was like, wow! Because now, I don't know that they're planning this, but now the X-Men is going to tie into the Kang multiversal war. We got ancient Egypt with the gods of ancient Egypt that will tie into the Black Panther, with Bast, with Moon Knight, with Khonshu. There's so many places that storyline and the attempt to prevent Sabanur from becoming Apocalypse. Because they recognize him.
Yes.
And they're like, oh crap.
Yeah, we gotta stop this guy.
Yeah.
It's pretty harmful.
Yeah, we gotta make him be a good guy. So that's and then on the other side, Jean and Scott, and we don't know who else because we don't know where Wolverine and Morph have ended up. They get flung into the far future where they meet their own son, Nathan, who was sent into the future with Bishop several episodes before. And
they meet somebody else too.
Ascani.
Yeah. Who is, what she calls, what Summers? I forgot her first name. She's Summers too, right?
No.
I thought she was a Summers.
No, but Hope Summers is in that future as well.
Yep.
Yeah, there's all kinds of future Summers.
Yeah. Bunch of Summers. Hopefully you all have a bunch of Summers. But then, the end credit scene or the post credit scene where Apocalypse picks up a playing card just so happens to be from a special deck of Gambits. So that came out too. That
Now,
potentially
did that post-credit scene actually air with the original airing, or was it tacked on later?
it was original airing.
Okay, because I missed it.
So
I thought
Same.
them being flung into the past and future was the post-credit scene.
same.
Done. Wow.
Same. I had to my friend, he lives a couple block away from me. He told me about it, and I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, he picked up a playing card," and I was like, "Oh, that means that Gambit could be resurrected. He could be deaf." I was like, "Yes, he could be deaf."
Wow.
Yes. I was like, "He
Yeah.
could be deaf."
Now, here's
And
my
then
one
Wolverine?
question. Here's my one question about this entire series. Where in the world was Cyclops or Colossus?
That's a great question.
Where in the world was Colossus?
So when I think it was when I can't forget his name, the one that could do the energy power, um,
Bishop?
Bishop. He was Xing out like in the end of the show, Xing out all the missing X-Men. Colossus was on there, and a couple other people was on there. Havoc was on there on the little like
Oh, yeah. The
chalkboard.
people that they could assemble
Yes.
to reform the X-Men.
So Colossus was on there, and a bunch of other people was on there. So I think he might have just been out of town. But I'm just like, we saw Spider-Man in this series. We saw Black Panther in this series. We saw Mary Jane in this series. We saw like
Daredevil, Cloak
Daredevil,
and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger. We saw everybody. We're getting to see like one of the main like OG X-Men. The only time we saw him was when Morph changed into him. So we know that he's in this world. So at least we know that. So he's in this world. So also Hulk has to be in this world.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
there's not-
and Morph changes into Ileana magic at one point as well.
Mhm. So it's like everybody's in this world. So it's going to be interesting to your point to see how they pull everybody together. But I'm wondering, is he like in a Sub-Syrian, like maybe he's still in
Russia, Siberia.
Russia or something like that? Yeah.
Was he in the original series?
Yes.
Okay.
But he was later, and he was in the series along with Omega Red.
Okay.
And you saw Omega Red too, which that's one of my favorite villains of all time, by the way.
All right. I did love the way they treated Nightcrawler in this series. Nightcrawler is probably my favorite X-Men character, either him or Rogue. And you know, he's an expert acrobat, swordsman, and with the teleportation power, I think he is maybe the most formidable X-Men member fighter, and he's the most underrated, most underappreciated.
You know what's better than his abilities? His linguistic skills when it came to that eulogy he performed for Gambit. I was like, if I ever go, I want somebody to give me a eulogy like that. He played on everything. He played on his cards. He played on his his expertise as a thief. He played on his loving other people, and he still did it with a smile. Did it with jokes. I was like, that is. I want nothing less for anybody ever in the rest of life but a Nightcrawler eulogy.
Now we did forget one thing.
Mm-hmm.
In that same episode where Gambit sacrificed himself,
mm-hmm.
the first casualty of that attack was Madeline Pryor.
Yeah.
She was just completely obliterated.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we thought at that moment that Magneto had been killed as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then we find him, strapped up on the
drawers.
Yeah, later on.
I was like, there was this one meme. It was like, why are they trying to make Magneto be attractive? they're making Magneto be like a fanboy. They want a fanboy club for Magneto. I don't know what it is.
But by the way, that Magneto has become the #1 cosplay version on the con circuit, because all these guys who are in shape and maybe some who aren't just went out and bought some Speedos, and they got a Witcher wig, and they're doing Captive Magneto.
I love that for them. I love
Drew,
that.
maybe you should do a Captive
No,
Magneto
no,
cosplay.
no. I think my wife would not like that at all. At all. Well, maybe I'll do it for her. But anyway, that's not this type of show, Johnny. This is not that type of show.
Well, so anyway, a lot of other great moments on the show, and it did make me a fan of the animated X-Men. Am I going to go back and watch the original series? Probably not, because
Honestly,
for me it would be a step backwards.
You don't need to. I would say a couple of things I would say that's good in the original. The Phoenix Saga was good. They did that very well. They did a series where they met Cable. I keep on forgetting the guy's name.
Bishop.
that whole back and forth, like when they learned about time travel, that was pretty good. Other than that, I would say you're right. It's not too much that you need to really go back and see. But I would say that this series blew me out the water. Not in a long time have I been really wanting to wait for a Wednesday night or Tuesday morning. I might have been up at 12:01 to watch it, but I haven't done that in so long. And it just sucked me in from the first episode. And even we didn't talk about it should have been on top of this list, is the time when after to me my X-Men, and then they were kind of losing, and he said make it Storm, or said, oh no, he said Storm, what's the weather? And then Storm just starts coming with making everything ice, and gets the winds and everything flowing. That was one of the most the music, the timing, and then you see again Omega level, mutant level stuff that's happening. Professor X, let's go to top 30. That could have been a top 10.
Well, episode 5 has been submitted for an Emmy, and the voice actress that plays Rogue has been submitted for an Emmy for actress, daytime Emmy award. We'll see if that happens. But for those of you who are we're a little bit confused with the jump between the original series and X-Men 97, there is some hope for you. Marvel is publishing the X-Men 97 comic series, and so far 3 episodes are out, and it fills in the gaps between the 2 series. What? Did you not know this, Drew? Where'd you get this? Go to your local comic shop. They will have them.
Let's see inside.
So you're gonna love this. It is the art style is similar to the animated series. Yes. So it has a consistency and a congruity, and it fills in the blank spots.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe you didn't know about that.
I did not know about that. Now I do, and now comic book stores will be scared of me.
and of course you see over my shoulder.
Yeah, I saw that. I think we was talking about that before the show came out. We was just sending new releases to each other.
Yeah, so this is the original series, X-Men Storm. I'm not going to take her out of the box. I did that a couple of weeks ago, but there's, she's painted with like the animated style lines and artwork. This is actually the Sentinel from the Marvel Legends Retro line, which, so it is in scale. It's 8 inches, but it's in scale to the rest of the line, which is 3 3/4. So this is a huge figure for that line. The rest of them are small. And I have the whole series, but for those of you who want X-Men 97 toys and you're having a hard time finding them at stores because they hit stores like a year before the series actually came out. There's a toy line right now called the Epic Heroes line, and these are 3 3/4 inch figures, so like Star Wars figure size. And they retail at $10 a piece.
Ooh, yeah.
So and there is a
Bishop. I remember his name.
Yeah, and there's a complete box set that you can buy the complete line in one set.
Ooh, nice.
And I think the complete set is like only $49. It's a really easy series to collect and to get into.
Yeah, I love that. I love when you do the box sets. That's always good.
Well, listen, Drew, I know you have to head out, and time is short. Time is precious. We've gone much longer than I had anticipated. But for those of you who are watching, I hope you've enjoyed our analysis of X-Men 97. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. So post comments below, or if you're listening on the audio podcast, send us a voice message. Click the voice message link and send us a voice message. Let us know what you thought about X-Men 97. What did we miss? Or, did we get anything out of order in terms of 10 through 1? I'm going to say number 2, Return of Xavier. But that was voted on by the fans. So
what do they know?
Yeah. So, Drew, where can people find you?
You can find me anywhere that podcasts play at Drew vs. World. And then also go to drewversusworld.com for anything up and coming and new.
That is fantastic. And before we leave, we need to acknowledge our sponsor, Dr. Malcolm's Body Bag.
Nice.
When I was a kid, the Mighty Men and Monster Makers was one of the coolest toys on the planet. Well, Body Bags takes that idea and ramps it up a notch by doing it in 3D. There are 4 different assortments that come in zippered body bags, and you can mix and match to create your own characters and abominations. Get yours today.
Body bags.
And that is it for us. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like the show, tell 200-300 of your closest friends and family to come join the fun. And until the next time, love you, mean it. We'll catch you on the back of the cereal box. Ta-da!
It's like Coca-Cola, Levi